Hello, everybody. Shavua Tov. I hope this is the start of a great week for all of you. Tonight, I want to share two short teachings on our Torah portion, and then if we have extra time, a short teaching on from the Kedushat Levi on Pirkei Avot. So, as you know, if you've been following for months now, I'm Shavua Tov Elaine and Steve, my mom, in Florida. If you've been following along, we have been studying out of the Kedushat Levi, 18th century Hasidic master. He comments on the Torah portion as well as on other things like Psalms and on Pirkei Avot that we might get to tonight. But we're going to start with we're going to start right from our Torah portion. So let's jump into it. This is from our reading today. It was Exodus chapter 6, verse 7. The verse is this: "V'lakachti etchem li la'am, v'datem ki ani Adonai." And I will take you to be for me a people, and you will know that I am God. And the Kedushat Levi says this. He says, "Ki Hashem yitzbarach leit machshava tvisa beiklal." He says, it's in the nature of God that you can't comprehend God. There's no thought that can sufficiently grasp what God is. Just to hold on to that for a moment. We've been talking a lot about Dveikut and about getting closer to God and about mitzvot and about Torah, being tools to know God. And then he comes out, and in the first line says that there is no way to know God. There is no thought that can accurately grasp on to what God is. Masigim or Hashchina al yedei haTorah v'hamitzvot shenatan lanu hakadosh baruch hu v'zeh lakachtihu v'liten lechem haTorah v'yedei zeh bidatem ki ani Hashem yeh lechem yedi'ah me'or Hashchina. But what he says is that one can reach the Or HaShechina, the light of the Shechina, of God's, theoretical resting presence in the world, by way of Torah and mitzvot. And God gave those to us as a tool, it says here. He says, "V'liten lachem haTorah v'ayidei zeh," and I gave you Torah, and by way of this, you will know that I am God. And you will have Yehiyeh lachem yedi'ah me'or hashchina. You'll have some kind of idea of God from the light of Shechina. From this verse, I think we can understand how Torah and mitzvot, fit into a Jewish worldview when you're trying to understand God, or you're trying to have a relationship with God. It's not that we can know God through the world. We can't know. What I mean by that is you can't know God like per se exactly, because God is beyond thought. But through Torah and mitzvot and our traditions, we have what the Kedushat Levi calls a yidi'ah, a sense me'or hashchina, from the light of the Shechina. So we can't know God, we can see the effects. And a good corollary, a good metaphor for this is that you can't look at the sun. The sun is too bright to look at. I mean, you can, but it hurts your eyes. That's why this is a metaphor. But for an extended period of time, you really can't look at it. But the light of the sun lights up the whole world. We see the effects of the light, though we can't see its source. And this is what the Kedushat Levi says is the essence of Torah and mitzvot. That they don't connect us directly to God, because that would be too powerful. That would be like looking directly at the sun. But Torah and mitzvot are a tool to access the light of the Shekhinah. And with this light, we can understand the source where it comes from. We have a sense of it. With this light, we can use it to shine and find, meaning and understanding in the world around us. So there's two lessons to draw from this. The first is that we can't know the source of this light because it's too powerful, too big, beyond this world, beyond our human brain to comprehend. But we can see its source. And Torah mitzvot are the effects, kind of the rays of the sun, so to speak, not the sun itself. So we have a sense of the sun from the light, but we can't look at it directly. And the second lesson to get from this is that we have access to that light, which gives us, an added benefit when we're walking around the world in, so to speak, darkness. It's not literally dark, unless it's nighttime and it's pitch black, but, there is a sense of confusion when we're walking around as human beings trying to navigate what it means to, to live a good life. Trying to understand what moments mean. Big things and little things. What does it all mean? Why am I here? What does COVID mean? What does this relationship mean? What am I to do in this very small instance here in my life? Big things, little things. We have access to this light which can shine and, shed understanding on all of it. So 2 lessons we get from that. 1, you can't look at the sun, but we need its light. And 2, we can use that light for guidance in our world. Okay. I want to read another comment. This, if you remember in our Torah portion, God continually promises that Pharaoh's heart is going to be hardened. Pharaoh sometimes hardens Pharaoh's own heart, sometimes it's passive, and sometimes God does it directly. And that's what this verse is on. Also, Yochev, Shalom, Shavua Tov. Glad you're here with us. Okay, this is God's voice. Exodus chapter 7, verses 3 and 4. Ba'ani akshe et lev paro, v'lo yishma aleichem paro. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh will not listen to you. And then the continuation of the verse is, and I will multiply my signs and wonders. Now, here's the Kedusha Levi's comment. Ayin be'or ha'chaim, and he says, and I learned this, it's explained in the Or HaChaim, Umaksha, he says, there's a difficulty in this verse. Achar she'amar v'ani akshet lev paro, right after it says, I will harden Pharaoh's heart. Ma makom lomar v'lo yishma aleichem paro. Why does it say, and Pharaoh won't listen to you? It doesn't make any sense. If you're going to harden Pharaoh's heart, pshita, obviously, Pharaoh's not going to listen to you. Yet, the Torah found it necessary to say both. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh will not listen to you. So now he's going to ask why. Ki be'emet, Hashem yitbarach asa bekan shnei nisim gedolim b'shnei bechinot. He says, the truth of the matter is this, that God did two amazing miracles of 2 different kinds of characteristics. Hanes ha'echad, the first miracle, Mashehikata Mitzrayim b'detzach, was, those first 3 plagues that God promised in this verse. Dam, tzfardea, and kini, blood, frogs, and lice. Hanes hasheni, and the second miracle, Mashehiksha et lev paro, the second miracle is the fact that he hardened Pharaoh's heart in order to bring on more plagues. This is what hinted to in this verse, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and I will multiply my signs and my wonders. That is to say, bazeh, in this, I multiply my signs and wonders. What the Kedushat Levi is saying here is there are more miracles, there are more signs and wonders than just the plagues in these stories. If you remember from the Passover Seder, the rabbis compete with each other to see how many miracles occurred. Leading up to Rabbi Akiva, I think he says that there were 250 makot, 250 strikes against Egypt. And then here, as far as miracles, what the Kedusha Levi is saying is there are more miracles that God promised than just the plagues themselves. And the miracle that God is referring to here, when God says, I will multiply my signs and wonders, is the fact that he hardened Pharaoh's heart. The fact that God hardened Pharaoh's heart is itself a miracle, is itself a sign. Here's what I love about that. The plagues are terrifying, they're fantastic, they're Hollywood quality, locusts flying in from the sky, blood, everywhere, the whole Nile turning into blood, frogs everywhere. It's huge, it's public, everybody sees it, everybody knows about it. But there is another kind of miracle that happens here, and it happens on exactly the opposite scale, which is to say, the miracle of God hardening Pharaoh's heart. This is a sign just between God and Moses, maybe Pharaoh. Pharaoh understands what's happening here. But there's a lesson here, which is that when we look for miracles, I know before I read this, I was always under the impression that miracles were something I could see, something in the external world. But this verse comes to say, when God says, I'll multiply my signs and wonders, miracles might be happening everywhere around us, but inside the hearts of, inside our hearts. It could be that when somebody has a change of heart, that this, according to the Kedusha Levi, may be a nace, may be a miracle in and of itself. When it doesn't need to just be huge. God may very well be working in the inner chambers of our souls, doing miracles every day, and we may not realize it. Just like in this instance, it's possible that only Moses understood that this was a sign, that this was a miracle, that Pharaoh was acting like this. So too, maybe in your own life, somebody might act in a way that surprises you. You might act in a way that surprises yourself. And it's possible that that's God. We believe in a God that acts in history. The moment that comes to mind here is in the Purim story when Esther goes into the inner chamber of King Ahasuerus, and he has compassion on her. She prays to God that he affects her heart. She's fasting for 3 days, that he accept her fully when she comes into his chamber. And he does. This is the God, in the Exodus story. This is not just the God that affects, the cardinal directions of the world, north, south, east, west, the plagues, the hail. This is not just the God of the Hollywood blockbuster, level plagues. We learn about a God that works quietly in the hearts of men and women. And miracles happen there too. I thought that was a beautiful understanding of that verse, and I will multiply my signs and wonders. That is to say, because the fact that God has hardened Pharaoh's heart is itself another sign, another wonder. Okay, we're going to study one more text tonight. This is, here, I'll show you what we're working with here. So this is part 1 of the Kedushat Levi Yitzhak Berditchev's book, the Kedushat Levi. It's commentary on the Torah portions. Part 2 is Likutim. It's commentary on Psalms, the Megillot, kind of a random grouping of things. And part of his commentary is also on Pirkei Avot. So I want to do a teaching from there today too, on the very first Mishnah of Pirkei Avot. And it starts with this line. It says, Moshe kibel Torah misinai. That's how Pirkei Avot starts, Ethics of Our Fathers. It says, Moses received Torah from Sinai. Yesh ladakdek. There is what to be punctilious about here, he says. The hayalo lomar bisinai. It should have said besinai, at Sinai, or at the location of Sinai. It should have said Moses received the Torah at Sinai, but instead it says from Sinai, mi Sinai. And Yochav, I see your comments. I'll translate it in just a bit. And it seems right to explain. The Hine Katuv. We know that Moses was more humble than anybody else. And thus in Egypt, Moses said, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? And when God said that Torah should be given by him, by Moses, that he would be the teacher to all of Israel, he didn't agree with this at all. He didn't like that plan whatsoever. And where is the humility in this? Omnam adarabba, hu hanotenet, k'moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom, histakel shatorah shenitinaten al har Sinai. However, he would be the one to give it. And it had to do with the fact that it would be given on Har Sinai. V'hatama, the reason is this. Kamosha Amru Razal. As we say in Sota, in the Talmud, Lefisha hu namuch mikol heharim, that it was given at Sinai, specifically at Sinai, because it was the smallest of all of the mountains. V'ra'ah she'ein haTorah nitenet ki'im al yedei hashafal v'haguru mehakol. And Moses saw, that the Torah would be given only by something that was low and smaller than everything else. And immediately, Moses wanted that the Torah would be given by him. Because of the amount of his humility. Because he thought that there really wasn't anybody in Israel that was lower than him. Because Torah would not be given except by the lowest things, in the lowest places, by the things that were less than everything else. Moshe kibel Torah. And this is why we have in this first Mishnah, Pirkei Avot, Moses received the Torah. And that difficulty, which we said earlier, where is this humility? For this, Lazeh Amar Mi Sinai. Because of this, we wrote Mi Sinai. Shelamad Mi Sinai. Shenitan alav haTorah. V'lo al sha'ar heharim mipnei shehu namuch mikol heharim. Because Moses learned from Sinai that the Torah could only be given by those things which are lower than everything else. And thus he also wanted Torah to be given by him. What I love about this comment is it should really say Moses received the Torah at Sinai, but he says he received it from Sinai, which is to say he learned something from Mount Sinai. And what he learned was that Torah is only given through low places. And just to explain the teaching, Moses himself, seeing himself as lower than all the other men and women of Israel, believed that he too, Torah should be given through him because he was lower. So it was on account of the fact that it was given at Mount Sinai that Moses even agreed to have the Torah given through him. And secondarily, Moses learned from the fact that it would be given at Sinai that Torah is only given through low places. If you if you remember at the beginning of Ha'azinu, it says, "May my teaching be like water, be like rain." And if you think about how water works, it always goes to the path of least resistance to the lowest places. No matter if it lands, on the top of a mountain, in the middle, it always finds its way to the low places. And Torah, too, we learn from this, is not found by being haughty. It's not found by having a quote high ego and thinking yourself better than anybody else, but actually the opposite. It's found specifically through humility and through a feeling that you have what to learn and where to grow. Okay, my mom Elaine, you said, but isn't Mount Sinai high? Well, I'll say, our tradition is that it is not. In the Talmud, it says specifically that it is lower than all the other mountains. Now, it's possible that the Mount Sinai that you can visit today, I haven't, is a tall mountain, but it's also possible that Mount Sinai isn't the same Mount Sinai that's referred to in the Torah. And Yochel, you said truth. It is a miracle that our hearts change. Miracles are beyond the visible. This being perceived is also a miracle. Yes, back to our lesson about the hearts and God working in the innermost places. So what we can learn from tonight is this. If you want to get closer to God, then you can't do so through thinking that you have more of a right or ability to get closer to God than others. It's specifically through a feeling that you have where to grow, that there are parts of you that you still need to discover, and that there are maybe parts of God, parts of the Torah that may even be beyond us. And so I pray for us tonight that we, through Torah and through mitzvot, find a little bit of the Or HaShechina that we talked about in the beginning. The light of the Shechina, for even when we can't grasp God, entirely, we can still have access to that light. And I hope that this week you're able to find a little bit of that for yourselves. So with that, I'll stay on just for another minute in case there are any questions, comments, concerns, and then we'll say Shavua Tov. Keisha, Shabbat Shalom to you too. And Matthew, I miss Sinai Temple too. Yes. Yochel, I'll translate your comment. You say, thanks for the shiur, very intense. Hashem makes things happen imperceptibly. Miracles at every moment. Yeah, it could be. It really could be that there are miracles happening every moment, and we can't see them because they're happening in our hearts. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Nathan, for being here. And thank you, everybody. I'll wish you all a Shavua Tov, and I look forward to more learning next week. Shavua Tov. Oh, Rojinx. Was Rosalie, I believe, was your first name? Oh, I hope I'm getting that right. But I'm glad you're here. Shavua Tov, everybody.